love this film. I thought it was such an interesting, fascinating watch. Can you talk me through how someone decides to turn their life into a documentary?
Well, I got two stents put in my heart, and when I came out of it, I was talking to my wife about wrestling a lot. I had thought about it quite a bit, and she was like, What are you talking about?" She didn't really understand it, but it had been something that had been sitting with me for a long time. The sort of way people had been bullying me and just kind of being the joke of the business. So I wanted to stand up for myself and sort of give myself a voice. Through the process, I learned that it really was about loving myself. So no matter what anybody says, it just doesn't affect you. Don't take it personally. But if you're beating yourself up, you tend to read things that are negative and believe them. That's what starts triggering you and like getting you really pissed off. So that's what I learned. I mean, I think everyone should make a documentary on themselves. I think personally, like, I'm the champion of my world, but you're the champion of yours. And I think that's more of an attitude that we all need to have.
That's awesome. That's downright inspirational. When you rewatched this documentary, or like when you watched cuts in the process, did you come away feeling net inspired, or did it kind of re-trigger or re-scratch those scars or itches?
Yeah, it definitely re-scratched and opened up all these old wounds. At one point, my wife, who's the main producer on it and did such an incredible job producing this film, she kicked me out of the editing room. I was no longer allowed to be there. But it was a really good lesson for me to sort of relinquish control, not, allow incredible filmmakers like David Dark and James Price to do what they do, and work with Parallax, an incredible editing group. So I was just, I knew I wanted to be incredibly vulnerable and open and just really let everyone see into my world. So I knew they had footage like that. They had the stuff to find, the story within it. But me being sort of nitpicky about in the edit about don't use that or use this just was slowing the process down.
Yeah. Is there anything particularly intense or interesting that wound up leaving on the cutting room floor that you kind of miss?
Well, there's a ton of stuff. There's a ton of stuff. Me and RJ City did a whole tag team run within the independent circle that there's some pictures and stuff, but it definitely didn't cover it to the extent that there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. Yeah, there were a lot of stuff. I got to wrestle Honky Tonk Man, and that's not in it. There's really some really fun, cool stuff that I wish were in it. But
Yeah,
also, you only have a certain amount of time to do a film without, making it multiple episodes or something.
for sure. The love and the reverence for the sport of professional wrestling is so strong throughout this thing. What is one of the first matches you ever remember watching that kind of like inspired you or turned that switch on?
I really loved, I saw Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan during their whole feud. And it was just a house show, so no belts were exchanged. I don't think he was able to body slam him. It was a big build up to that. But that really had a profound effect on me, seeing him in person. And just going to the shows, I always loved Miss Elizabeth. So she had a really close place in my heart. Just as like a kid, seeing this beautiful woman, and I thought she was so sweet and kind. So, and I always thought Macho Man never treated her right, but that's him playing a heel in a great way. And the same with Roddy Piper. He was really one of the best heels and just an inspiration on in the ring, but also more so as a person outside of the ring. I got to have a dinner with him that I'll never forget.
That's incredible. We kind of see you transition through the film I think in the wrestling matches near the beginning of it, it looked to me like you were forced into playing a heel. And then by the end, you're kind of more of a face or a hero of the match. Is there a role you prefer playing or that's more fun for you?
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a baby face than a heel.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to be mean to people. I know now how to stand up for myself if someone's trying to bully me or push me around. But yeah, it's hard for me to be a heel and do heel stuff. Like at one point, I turned heel mainly because I wanted Jerry the King Lawler to put me back in my place. So I just wanted to do the same move that he had done on Andy Kaufman, a pile driver. So we set this thing up where I'd lost the match and I got really upset and I said, "You guys never believed in me, and then Jerry comes out and tries to talk some sense into me. I said, "Don't come near me, Jerry. I'll sue you. I'll sue you." And then he comes and he pile drives me and put my head back on straight because I wasn't thinking straight. But as I was getting out of the ring, there was one kid in the audience who was probably about 8 or something. And he was sitting there and he's crying and he's saying, "I believed in you. I believed in you." And I was like, I was about to start tearing up. I was like, I didn't want to break the, business, but I didn't really know what to say either. So I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And ran off.
That is heartbreaking.
It really was. I think about that kid all the time. I hope I run into him sometime and could say, "Sorry, kid, I wasn't thinking straight."
There is a huge reverence for a kind of shared reality of the experience of professional wrestling. But there's also this wonderful sequence in the film where we kind of watch you choreograph a match. And I'm curious, it felt like there were 3 people, you, the other wrestler, and a choreographer. What is that process like? Is there room to kind of push back on a move someone wants to make? What is that like?
Well, it was Nick, the referee, and Yuma, the producer, that were the other 2 in there. And it was me and RJ. And that's essentially a rundown of what you're going to do right before you go out. Like it's sort of what you do with the producer, the booker, the segment producer kind of thing. So I cleared it with Yuma and Nick that it was all right to show this sort of behind the scene element. And RJ had a lot to do with sort of that with the editing room and helping construct that. And so once we got the clearance from them, I'd heard it had been done before on film, so it wasn't like I was the first one and sort of disrespecting the business. Also wanted people to see how it is choreographed, but it's still real. It's still, it's a lot goes into it. You're not just doing moves necessarily. You're telling a story, and we wanted to share that with people.
It was fun watching you kind of light up even at the moments where your character is losing, so to speak.
Yeah, it's totally. I mean, there's a lot of people that's one thing I still don't get. Like, people say like, "I'm not gonna do the job for him." Like they won't want to play along because of either their ego or. And I get it now. I mean, there's like this value of your persona and character that you have to be respectful of and understand and not put yourself in things that wouldn't be true to your character. So but sometimes in the wrestling business, people, we call it, they live the gimmick, which they start believing the fact that they're either indestructible or whatever. I know for a fact I am not immortal. So it's something that I, thank God, have a grasp on, because you can get yourself in a lot of trouble if you start believing.
Yeah.
And that goes for acting too. A lot of actors start believing this whole crazy world we're in and start seeing themselves like, better than others, which I just never subscribe to any of that. I just think, I'm the greatest in my world and you're the greatest in yours. And as long as we can all figure that out, I think we'll stop disrespecting each other so much.
I love that. Speaking of so many facets of wrestling being real, there's that really hard to watch match that put you in the hospital where
Yeah.
there was a knife put at you, your throat got cut. Was any of that pre-planned? Was that all a surprise for you? And also, if you could walk me through the moment when you decided to walk back into the ring and finish that match.
Like most of wrestling, like it's choreographed to an extent, but sometimes things go out of control. Sometimes different egos are involved. And I do have to admit that me pulling his legs is what cut my neck. And that was on me because I wasn't supposed to pull his legs. So the main lesson I learned in that was always stick to the plan, even if things are going wrong. But there are a lot of elements. There's a lot of nuance to that match. A lot of things that I did wrong, a lot of things that he did wrong. But we were all really fired up. It was really there was an energy in that room and on that night. That was really kind of dark, but also really exciting. It was a total experience. It's kind of what I did this whole thing for. I go into the ring with these fans hating me because that's sort of that world is really hardcore. And then we were able to flip it so that they really were cheering at the end. And that's the whole goal in wrestling is to engage the fans in the story that you're telling for those few minutes, however many they are, and really get them invested and believing and worried and happy and angry. And if you can start having them go through this range of emotions, you're doing your job. And in the perfect way, like you get a huge pop at the end and then the match ends and then there's a big celebration of that. If the good guy wins, then the good guy wins, that's usually what I'm hopeful for. But if the bad guy wins, someone should come out and, teach him a lesson. That's sort of like the heel should never truly win. It shouldn't be because they're smarter, stronger. They should, heels are chickens. They don't have, they'll do anything to cheat and win.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on now.
I don't know what you mean.
That's just good.
Shifting gears just for the final moments here, I am really excited to hear that you are rejoining Scream 5, as I'm sure a lot of folks are. I'm curious if there's anything particularly exciting or surprising about this latest installment you want to share.
Well, Courtney's Cox signed up, so we're really excited about that. We're waiting to see if Nev signs on. We have tremendous filmmakers involved in it. And Kevin Williamson's given in his blessing, as has the Wes Craven family estate. So I really am excited about carrying on his sort of his legacy, just, bringing all these people back together on a project that he started that people love so much. So to continue to let those characters be seen is really exciting and being a part of. I love playing the role of Dewey, so it'll be fun to grow this mustache back.
Are there any kind of new wrinkles to Dewey that we can expect or that you're excited to play?
I have no idea. I don't have no idea what they're going to do. So
that's awesome. Final question for you. What does the future look like balance-wise, acting versus wrestling?
For wrestling, it's pretty much, I did it for this movie, for this experience. I hope it probably will mostly live there. It is something that once you're a part of it, you're kind of always a part of it. So I don't know. None of the real bigger companies want anything to do with me at this point. So I'm not sure. I do love the independent circuit and would love to travel with RJ and do some tag stuff if that was to happen. I'm not really interested in wrestling alone because it's not as fun for me and it's not as entertaining. Me and RJ have a really fun deal we do, but I still have to get him on a talk show, and none of the talk shows wanted me on this cycle either. So there's still all this stuff that is like, you know, that's within this movie that still exists, you know, until like the movie maybe does really well, then suddenly AEW or WWE will be interested or something. You know what I mean? But it's such like this game, you know. So mainly what I'm trying to do is just sort of focus on the stuff I want to do. That's what I'll kind of do next. But if it were to wrestle or something, that could be interesting. I don't know if I'm up for it anymore. It's so painful.
We can see that in full detail. Thanks so much for your time. It was so great chatting with you.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.